Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Institute. I'm Sarah Rosen-Wortel. I have the great pleasure and honor of being Urban's president and also of welcoming all of you who are here today, those who are in the building, and those of you who are online watching live or watching the live stream later. Before I start, I always have to do housekeeping. This opening plenary session is being live streamed and recorded, and all of the materials and the event itself will be posted on our event page afterwards if you want to check something out. If you're online, you are muted, but we hope you will be part of the conversation thanks to the wonderful technologies we have. So please engage by submitting questions and comments into the Q&A box. We have also enabled captions for accessibility on your device, but you can adjust the settings at the bottom of your screen if you'd like. We will be sharing a link to a survey post-event. We appreciate when you take the time to give us feedback. It helps make all of our programs stronger and better. And finally, if you want to join the online conversation so that others who are watching or listening or worrying about these issues can join you in live, please use the hashtag #LiveAtUrban. Okay, so now we get to do the work. Let's jump in. First, I want to say a huge thanks to our thought partners in putting this together. We are privileged to be in very good company with our colleagues at Jobs for the Future, the Council of State Governments, Safal Partners, and of course, a big thank you to the Department of Labor for supporting each of these four organizations as Registered Apprenticeship Technical Assistance Centers of Excellence, and for being here and supporting the work that we're all doing that we'll talk about today. We especially appreciate Deputy Assistant Secretary Manny Lumar, who is joining us in person, and we're all going to get to hear from in a little bit. And lastly, we would want to also say thanks. This event wouldn't be possible without the generous support of Google.org. We appreciate not simply that, but most importantly, their own broader investments in apprenticeships. This morning, we celebrate the 10th National Apprenticeship Week, and we recognize the power of apprenticeships in building careers, strengthening American industry, fueling economic growth through learn and earn opportunities. Today, we look back on the progress that's been made towards building a strong national apprenticeship system, and we look forward at what remains to make it possible for every worker to access and succeed in an apprenticeship that leads to a good job. This week also underscores the promise of large-scale system change if we choose to all work together. Progress that we can make towards a vision of an accessible, equitable, data-driven national apprenticeship system that benefits both workers and employers and helps to strengthen society. We're excited to spotlight registered apprenticeships as the gold standard for work-based learning and creating pathways for Americans to economic progress, and also to showcase the key lessons from the 4 centers of excellence as we've all worked to strengthen apprenticeships over the past several years. Although the centers will sunset this summer, we have built knowledge, capacity, and resources across the apprenticeship system to continue to expand the system's power and impact. Conventional wisdom in the United States still too often emphasizes college as a primary route to the middle class. But for too many, it also leads to unprecedented student debt, insufficient completion, and personal uncertainty about what will come beyond the college degree. Apprenticeships offer another pathway to the American dream, and they allow individuals to earn while they learn, combining hands-on training with coursework, earning a paycheck from day one. And the payoff is clear. Urban's research shows that apprentices see a 49% increase in earnings by completion, and that for every dollar an employer invests in an apprenticeship program, they see $1.44 in return. Looking to the future, given the challenges to the United States economy, apprenticeships are essential to meet the evolving needs of our workers, our businesses, and the larger economy. By modernizing apprenticeships, we ensure more workers access training and support that prepares them for rewarding work. And we also improve apprenticeships so that businesses can bring on talent more efficiently, adapting quickly to shifts in their needs and demands given changes in their sectors and technology. The result that's possible is an economic growth that's sustainable and inclusive, driven by a workforce that enjoys the rewards that their skill brings to society. Now, we know that the foreclosed options in our society for non-college educated workforce have been a driving force of powerful shifts in our larger economy. And so we really believe that the investments that the Department of Labor have made in the centers of excellence reflect a real desire to build a system driven by learning from what has worked that can help to address some of those broader shifts. This investment has made apprenticeships more accessible and also revealed challenges that need further solutions. There has been significant growth in the number and range of apprenticeships available, but there is still much work to do to ensure, for example, that those who start but don't complete apprenticeships have greater pathways to success, and for businesses who are eager to establish these kinds of training programs but don't know where to start, how can we help them move forward? Just Have apprenticeships have grown with bipartisan support over the past decade. The dedication of our institution, and I believe everyone who took the time to be with us today, is going to persist as well. We'll ensure that our technical assistance, research, and policy recommendations help system actors to do what works in practice. Our goal is to enable Americans to make informed choices about apprenticeships and to ensure that workers and businesses gain the benefits. For apprenticeships to expand and maintain quality, they must be, as we know, industry-driven and accessible to a broad range of the workforce. And we, as we'll hear from all of the institutions who have talked about, we've been working in developing tools, resources, frameworks to simplify high-quality registered apprenticeships. At Urban, we created the nation's first apprenticeship standards library, taking the guesswork out of apprenticeship design, and we've released new apprenticeship research to guide policymaking, not only at the federal level, but at states and localities around the country. So as we celebrate this 10th National Apprenticeship Week, let's reaffirm our commitment to a modern system, one driven by data quality collaboration, a system where businesses, unions, educators, and communities are working together to support every learner to a good job and a brighter future. And it is fitting that as we celebrate the 10th Apprenticeship Week and we talk about the enormous progress the system has made and yet also the great work to do ahead, that we also recognize Dr. Bob Lehrman. Bob has many affiliations, but we are proud that he has been for many years an Institute Fellow at the Urban Institute, from whence he has done much of his work as a pioneer in the American apprenticeship system. And appropriately, he was a recipient of this year's prestigious Harold W. McGraw Prize in Education for his tireless contributions and vision for the future of apprenticeships. I know how much that I have learned from him. So let's watch a short video about Bob's contributions to the field. Congratulations, Bob. We're grateful for your vision, for building urban apprenticeship practice, and for cultivating the next generation of leaders in this sector. Our future is bright because of you. Please enjoy. Thanks, everyone.
Bob Lehrman is America's #1 academic expert on apprentices.
When I met Bob, it was a revelation.
Bob is the original apprenticeship warrior.
Bob's research explained everything to me. Suddenly, there was light.
I know no one that knows more about apprenticeship than Bob Lehrman.
His big vision is that we are going to have an apprenticeship system in the United States that's competitive with countries like Switzerland, Germany, UK, Australia.
If there's anyone who's the champion of earn and learn career launch infrastructure, it's Bob Lehrman.
In the early years, I was tasked with proposing something to reform welfare, but using a jobs approach. I came to believe that we needed something for a broader segment of the population. It wasn't really until I started learning more about international systems that I came to see apprenticeship as something that really could be applied in the U.S. As I learned more and more, I came to believe in it more and more.
The biggest impact of apprenticeships on the American economy so far has been a really robust construction industry and a few other industries where we have apprenticeships. The problem is we don't have it in most industries, which is why we have a workforce problem.
Digital transformation has completely changed the American economy. Now, the skills that employers are most seeking are often technical skills that are harder to learn in a classroom than they are by doing.
And for us to be the leader, then apprenticeship has to be at the front of the line.
Apprenticeship is fundamentally about learning, but with an emphasis on learning by doing, together with some conceptual work that informs that learning by doing.
I decided to be a software engineer, but I didn't have the experience to go behind it. So the apprenticeship definitely gave me everyday, hands-on experience that I wanted for software engineering. This apprenticeship has allowed me to breathe and be open and ask questions if I need to.
People learn in different ways, and if you impose the same approach to learning for people who learn in different ways, you're not going to get an equal outcome. You're going to disadvantage those people who learn best by doing.
He testified before a legislative commission in Maryland on economic development. He so impressed the members of the commission with his recommendations about apprenticeship starting in high school that it was one of the commission's top 5 recommendations for economic development.
I found out about the apprenticeship program through my high school, seeing that apprenticeship could open the door for so many job opportunities, be able to earn, be able to advance my career. Being able to do that while still attending school and growing my education was the biggest motivator.
Bob has been so successful at winning the why argument, we're now into the how.
It was his evidence, it was his research, and it was his tenacity and advocacy around apprenticeships that really helped drive the Department of Labor and the Congress to invest for its first time in a larger national apprenticeship system.
Bob's key insight is that it's the critical role played by apprenticeship intermediaries. These are organizations that stand in between the education system, the employer, and the apprentice. So that was the purpose of Apprenticeships for America, and it came about because Bob recognized that these other countries that were way ahead of us on apprenticeship had something that America didn't have, and now we do, thanks to Bob.
Bob Learman's greatest contribution to workforce is he never gave up.
Bob had a vision for apprenticeships that has really inspired a new movement around apprenticeships that is going to build from my generation to Gen Z, and hopefully my kids one day will go into an apprenticeship and see that as a valuable pathway.
Because of Bob's work, more young people today have the opportunity to get ahead, to get skills, get a good job, get a family-supporting wage.
One of my goals, in fact, is to buy a house, and I hope to be able to do that by the end of this year. Apprenticeship has really propelled my life into a better situation.
If we are able to scale apprenticeship, you will have young people developing into far more constructive occupations, lifestyles, couple relationships, maturity, and that will change America.
That's really inspiring. Good morning, I'm Zach Boren. I'm a Senior Policy Program Manager with the Urban Institute. I'm also Bob Lehrman's colleague, and he's my close friend. And I'm so proud of you and of what we've accomplished here at Urban Institute. You know, you lit the torch for the American apprenticeship movement that's inspired so many others. And so we're so grateful for that. Bob, thank you for your friendship and your faith in building a new system for American business. And we're going to continue that vision by building a future where more Americans begin their future and their career with apprenticeship contract and not a student loan. Next up, I'd like to welcome Manny Lamar. He's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Employment and Training Administration. His trust and shared mission to build a stronger, more robust, and inclusive national apprenticeship system inspires and empowers us every day. Thank you for that. Welcome, Manny Lamar.
Good morning, everyone. I guess, it's hard to follow that. And so I think we just go back to the video and rewind it, and then that'll just end my remarks for today. But again, thank you, Zach. Thank you to the Urban Institute and all of our Registered Apprenticeship Technical Assistance Centers. It really is a pleasure to be here with you all. And again, I'm a Deputy Assistant Secretary at ETA, the Employment Training Administration. And then previously, I've had the pleasure working on the research side, but also at the state level, overseeing the revamp of our legislation and implementation of apprenticeship in Nevada back in 2015. So really, great going into this to see the growth and the progress. Now, this week, I've had the pleasure, really, of participating in a wide range of events as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of National Apprenticeship Week. I really couldn't help but think that as we recognize the various themes of this week, whether it's from, young people, new and emerging industries, global, women, veterans, I couldn't help but think that we are experiencing a renaissance. And quite frankly, many of you all in the room are part of this renaissance. And so I'm super grateful to be part of it, and we shouldn't take it for granted. Now, speaking of the renaissance, if, we have any history nerds in this room, I'd like us to take a brief history detour and build on that and connect the dots with the work happening across the country at the Department of Labor, at SAAs, and the work across with the Registered Apprenticeship Technical Assistance Centers. And so I'll refer to that as the RATA centers. So as I mentioned, if you're a history nerd, speaking of the Renaissance, it was a period of cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth in Europe that took place from the 14th and 17th centuries. It was really a great time of social change and discovery, and it's considered to have bridged the gap between the Middle Ages and the modern civilization. So there were contributions in education, whether it's rethinking critical thinking. There was, of course, the printing press that revolutionized dissemination of information. There were contributions in art in terms of new techniques to, for artists. So this is where we see Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. There were contributions in science with the scientific method that began to take shape. I also think, when I think about the reasons that the Renaissance, I should say, was successful, there are about 5 elements that many considered were important. So some of these were cultural exchanges, innovation in science, technology, political changes, and artistic expressions. So I actually think the same themes that were present in the Renaissance and that made it successful were also present in the great work that is happening across the country and the work specifically happening on apprenticeships. And I also think this connects to the Registered Apprenticeships, the RATA centers. So for the next few minutes, entertain me here as I go through the 4 of the 5 elements and connect the work together. So on the science and the technology side, similar to the Renaissance that saw scientific improvements and new methods, I'm thinking about the efforts made through the Office of Apprenticeships, such as our partner finders, occupation finders, our standard builders. But I'm also thinking about the AAI evaluation and the return on investment data and some of the research that's being produced on registered apprenticeships that allows us to talk more intelligently about registered apprenticeship, such as, again, the over 90% retention rate, the proven return on investment, and the diverse companies that are actually taking part of registered apprenticeships. But this is also where I think the RATA centers and the partnership with DOL comes in. The Urban Institute's Registered Apprenticeship Occupations and Standards Center has helped us build and expand our world-class system by developing and updating occupational frameworks and national program standards for not only the skilled trades, but the burgeoning industries of IT, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, clean energy, education. To date, we have 37 approved occupational frameworks with 43 at various stages of development. Now, the National Occupational Frameworks outline the basic information sponsors need to register an apprenticeship program, and each occupation really along with the detailed instruction on how to use the NOFs in the registration process. This, along with the online registration apprenticeship library, the youth resources that Urban Institute has online, will help us program develop faster and more efficient. Now, so those were the science and the technology side. Now, speaking of the Renaissance, it was also marked by improvements in education. And in this area, I'm actually thinking about our efforts through the Office of Apprenticeship and again, and state apprenticeship agencies on, National Apprenticeship Week. We actually have a record of over 2,200 events, including proclamations. I'm also thinking about Youth Apprenticeship Week. I'm thinking about the work of the Trailblazers, where we're centering apprentices and recent apprentices' voices in the conversation, and our ambassadors that are really leading the way as messengers of registered apprenticeships. Again, this also connects to the work of the RATA centers. In this instance, I'm thinking about the Council of State Governments Center, CSG, that provides technical assistance to practitioners and grounding in terms of collecting and reporting data for programs, while also building on the capacity of in-house team as we develop public dashboards and issue papers and reports, and really, again, speak more strategically about the work. CSG's focus has been on engaging states, participating in providing better apprenticeship data, and to the department through technical assistance and resources. As a result, the center has contributed to the development and enhancement of both publicly available dashboards. So I'm thinking about our apprenticeship by state and apprenticeship population dashboard that, again, allows us to be smarter and more strategic about registered apprenticeships. So, finally, on the fourth element, so we talked about the science, technology, education. I think the fourth element is a cultural exchange that marked the Renaissance that made it successful. In this aspect, I'm actually thinking about our efforts with the Office of Apprenticeship and SAA's partners, whether it's collaborating with agencies, our efforts in sprints to accelerate program development. We started just in this administration with no states with registered K-12 teacher apprenticeships. And as a former teacher myself and overseeing our apprenticeship agency, I'm proud to say that we're at 46 states, really with DC and Puerto Rico, and actually the U.S. Virgin Islands just registered one yesterday or two. So in this instance, and whether it's in this instance in terms of this exchange, I'm also thinking about, quite frankly, the Biden-Harris investment in IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the first time, the largest investment in climate and clean energy. And for the first time, there's a federal tax credit if you leverage registered apprenticeships. And I just think we should not take that for granted. And this is a massive, massive growth and improvement of the work in the of apprenticeship. Again, this is an opportunity, I think, to connect to the work of the RATA Center, specifically Safal Partners and Jobs for the Future. So, for example, Safal Partners improved alignment with the workforce system by developing cross-training between apprenticeship training representatives, ATRs, who work for the apprenticeship agencies, and business service representatives who work at the American Job Centers throughout the country. These first national training series is increased system knowledge and collaboration among both stakeholders. The series was attended by nearly 1,000 leaders. This 5-part series really featured the work of DOL, in particular the Office of Apprenticeship, the Office of Workforce Investments, and promising practices from leaders from the field. However, I also think about the work of JFF, the Jobs for the Future, as a TA center providing customized support to employers, education providers, and state apprenticeship agencies to drive diversity in registered apprenticeship. The center works closely with minority-serving institutions, HBCUs, to really promote registered apprenticeship as a career path for students and a workforce solution for employers and their community. The collaborative is an effort to ensure we tap into the diverse talent of HBCUs and break down barriers that have excluded many from good jobs for far too long. So through the collaborative, DOL aims to create a national network of HBCU registered apprenticeship leaders and champions that work to increase information sharing, collaboration, and partnerships building across the HBCU network. Now, as I close, I see these connections to the Renaissance, again, through the science, technology, education, and cultural exchanges as opportunities. If you're a history nerd, please don't mention why I skipped over the political changes. As I transition out of my role in January, I'm trying to not cause too much trouble. But in all seriousness, I really do hope that you are able to see the connections as I spotlighted some of the amazing work being led by these centers in partnership with the Office of Apprenticeships and our state apprenticeship partners, which you'll hear a lot more about throughout the day in the breakout sessions and in organic conversations that I hope is amazing. And I know that there's phenomenal leaders and experts here throughout the day that you could hear for. So with that, I invite you to all engage with these centers during this event and afterwards to meet my any of the technical assistant needs that you have. And again, let's get ready to celebrate the next level and take part of this amazing apprenticeship renaissance. And thank you for being part of this journey with us.
Thank you again, Manny Lamar. Inspirational as always. So again, I'm Zach Bourne. In this role, I'm the director with my friend and colleague Bhavani Arabandi. We direct the Registered Apprenticeship Technical Assistance Center for Occupations and Standards. We're going to be celebrating some of that this week and talking a little bit about some of those accomplishments over the last 3 years. But first, thank you for joining us for a decade of National Apprenticeship Week. In the audience today are a lot of my friends from the Department of Labor. 10 years ago, when I had a little less gray hair, my friends and I at the Department of Labor started the first National Apprenticeship Week in 2015 under the Obama administration. We had 6 weeks notice to do it. 6 weeks. And the White House said, okay, you guys can go ahead and do it. And we had no money to do it. Like $0. But we did it anyway. It was the first national effort to elevate the value of registered apprenticeship. And we certainly didn't know what to expect. You know, what if we throw a party and no one shows up? But 300 events happened that year, and it turned out really well. It was almost in every state. And Manny, here you mentioned 2,200, which is just mind-boggling to me that we have that many events. I read last year's report that 500,000 people participated in National Apprenticeship Week. That's such a huge accomplishment. So thank you for the Department of Labor for continuing that effort on National Apprenticeship Week. And it's important. You know, it's inspired all of us. You know, we shouldn't make apprenticeship the best kept secret anymore. More young people and employers should benefit from it. And as Sarah said earlier, you know, this week is a time where we reflect on 10 years of growth and of new system building and of opportunity. And it's also about a time to talk about the steps forward that need to be made too. You know, I reflect this week on my own family story, and my own family story started with an apprenticeship. After a brief attempt at college, my dad landed an apprenticeship as an electric meterman, and he landed a good union apprenticeship with our local utility. And he worked there for 46 years. He got the gold watch. And he got, you know, he got the pension for his golden years. So, hey, Dad, I know you're watching. So, it's also a time to look ahead. What do we want our legacy to be? For me, looking ahead starts with this important investment in registered apprenticeship, changing the way we do apprenticeships in the U.S. We want to make it easier for employers and workers to access and break down those real barriers and those perceived barriers too, without sacrificing quality and the rigor we find in registered apprenticeship. Nothing worth having comes easy, and nothing easy is worth having. So, as we direct the Center of Excellence on Standards and Occupations, we set out with 3 main goals that all point towards one thing. That's to simplify apprenticeships. And we did this with our partners I know WorkHands is here, CSG is here, I'm not sure SPR is here, but and AIR as well. And we just want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication to all these efforts over the last 3 years. But we did it in 3 ways. First was to build 80 national occupational frameworks. These are the blueprints of high-quality registered apprenticeships. As we said earlier, we established the first national library for apprenticeship standards, bringing not just concepts of apprenticeship programs, but actual programs that have been implemented and approved by the states or the Department of Labor. And we're on our way to getting to all 50 states and over 2,600 examples to pull from in the library. And finally, we're researching on what policies make apprenticeships work. We've produced research on everything from state apprenticeship councils to what we can learn from our allies overseas on apprenticeships. And through this project, we really set out to build these main blueprints, as I talked about earlier, these high quality apprenticeship frameworks, because they're hard to find. They're hard to find. A decade ago, we could only dream of the opportunity to work with national occupational frameworks, to be able to point employers and industry to occupational standards that are driven by that industry. And that could be plug and play. It wasn't the case. It wasn't even close. It was unclear if you were an apprenticeship professional, if you were working on an auto tech apprenticeship, whether or not you're giving that standard Model T version or a Tesla 3 version. We want something more modern. Today, we make it simpler to start, offering turnkey solutions to starting industry-recognized and DOL-approved training plans. These frameworks make industry standardization possible, but also customization that apprenticeship professionals know employers need at the local level. The frameworks outline what you need apprentices to do very well on the job with benchmarks for competence, and they also provide the classroom instruction, what you want apprentices to know well and to succeed in the industry. Put simply, the frameworks are the building blocks of a modern apprenticeship system. They standardize quality and process for becoming a professional in your own field. So with that, I want to launch the National Apprenticeship Resource Hub for the very first time. Through this project, we set out to accomplish a vision of quality apprenticeships, simplified in many industries. This hub brings together the nation's apprenticeship standards, cutting-edge research all together, a one-stop for employers, industry, and apprenticeship professionals, advancing quality for apprenticeships and simplified and ready for the future. Today, the hub has 9 industries and over 60 national occupational frameworks. We aim to add at least 40 more by the end of this project in June 2025. These frameworks are in well-known occupations like welding and medical assistants that we've all built with employers. And those that Gen Z and my kids are going to need as we fight climate change, like forest fire prevention specialists and wind turbine techs as we transform our economy for the future. And you also find this is our website, it's called apprenticeships.urban.org. It's an easy one to remember. You'll also find snapshots, industry-specific research, the occupational frameworks, of course, organized by industry to learn more about those frameworks and can really create the apprenticeships of the future. And they allow, for example, you'll see here we have our educator apprenticeships, early childhood education, I love it, Shannon, elementary school teacher and paraeducator. We're so thankful for all of our partners, especially NEA, for helping us build those frameworks. And these are going to allow new educators to earn while they learn and shape the future one classroom at a time. And then lastly, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you don't find the standards you need at the hub, you're also going to find the National Apprenticeship Standards Library, also at the Hub. And this library offers a collection of the nation's approved apprenticeship program standards, outlines that you can use to customize a training program. So don't start your apprenticeship program from scratch. There's 34 states that have contributed to this, over 2,600 standards in over 500 distinct occupations. So thank you. And can I get just a quick round of applause to Work Hands and Patrick and his team for putting this together? It's amazing. Next, we'd like to share our video of employer, industry, and state partners who have used our national occupational frameworks to simplify the launch of their apprenticeship programs.
Registered apprenticeship programs combine on-the-job and classroom learning, benefiting employers and workers by meeting the fast pace of industry. Research shows that apprentices have higher lifetime earnings, and employers see a positive return on investment. However, employers often struggle to find readily available training outlines that meet current industry standards and are the starting point for an apprenticeship. The U.S. Department of Labor and the Urban Institute are working to streamline the process of designing and registering apprenticeship programs through national occupational frameworks. These frameworks provide the building blocks of a registered apprenticeship program for a specific occupation. National occupational frameworks are developed with the input of business, union, education, and workforce organizations. The U.S. Department of Labor then approves them as high-quality training standards for the National Apprenticeship System. The frameworks are already making a positive impact on businesses. Let's hear how Cloud for Good, a cloud consulting company, used a framework to design and launch an apprenticeship program.
Once we decided that we wanted to have a apprenticeship program, then it was like, how do we actually go about doing that? Who knows how to do this? I would, rather than reinventing the wheel, I would much rather go to people who are experts in the field. So Urban was a big partner to us, not only on what is this framework and how do we apply it to what we're trying to do and make it more specific for us in the Salesforce ecosystem. Salesforce is a type of database, so a lot of those competencies align perfectly. You just start to make them more specific for Salesforce administration and then ultimately consulting, which is our business. The benefit we've gotten from using the framework in particular is that it really enabled us to design both the initial training program, those first 2 or 3 months of the apprenticeship, and then structure the on-the-job learning opportunities, assessments, and eventually certifications to ensure that by the end of their 2 years, they were fully equipped. So it really kind of gave us the roadmap for that.
National occupational frameworks are available for all industry sectors and help employers and partners design apprenticeship programs at no cost, while ensuring that their program meets industry standards. By fast-tracking program development, employers and partners can save time and money and speed up the process of launching a high-quality apprenticeship program. Each framework contains 3 sections: an overview of the occupation, including any licensing requirements or apprenticeship prerequisites. The work process schedule outlines the on-the-job learning. The related technical instruction outline offers a template for recommended coursework, which can be delivered in a variety of ways, including online or in the classroom, by a college, or by the employer. Together, this information provides the starting point to develop a new registered apprenticeship program or to update an existing program. Urban Institute collaborates with industry experts to develop the frameworks for diverse business settings. The result is a framework that is driven by industry consensus. Now, let's hear how Urban and one industry group work together to develop the framework.
APIC is the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology. Our profession is shrinking in the field. We have folks leaving the field due to burnout during the COVID-19 public health emergency. We're also an aging profession. The value of the National Occupational Framework to our association was clear. We saved a ton of time and were able to move through the process and have our occupational framework, then approved by USDOL and greenlit to start registering our apprenticeship. So it's a time saver, it's guidance, it's also mentorship.
The National Occupational Frameworks are also valuable tools for partners and apprenticeship practitioners, such as state apprenticeship offices, as they work with employers to design and register programs. Let's hear from one state and how they are using a framework to grow apprenticeships in their state.
For the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship, the National Occupation Frameworks are very useful when we are developing new programs with new employers. One of our biggest jobs is to expand the use of registered apprenticeship. And one of the challenges for a new employer when they come to the table to do that is essentially starting with a blank sheet of paper. So the value for us is to have that predetermined, at least starting point, so that an employer has something to react to and they can mark it up and say, yes, we like this, no, we don't like that, and they can add. So I always recommend the use of the frameworks for my peers in states that are trying to create programs, because it'll bring that certainty and simplicity and speed to the table that's very appealing to employers.
Employers and partners can use the National Occupational Frameworks to customize their apprenticeship programs to meet specific workforce needs, while ensuring apprentices learn industry training standards. Access a framework today to jumpstart your apprenticeship program.
Well, hello everyone, good morning, welcome, and happy Apprenticeship Week. Today is cause for celebration because investment in apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship is growing, and not just from the public sector, but the private sector as well. And it is in more industries than ever before, right? As we can, attest to over here. For the first time, there are more apprentices working in occupations outside of construction and in emerging sectors than construction. And apprentices are far more diverse than before. More women, more people of color, more individuals with disabilities participate in apprenticeships. While this is all great news, right? Recently, economies the world over have had to contend with emerging technologies, a tight labor market, and an urgent need for workforce adaptation. Employers and policymakers are grappling with these dynamics to not only ensure that the workforce is equipped with the necessary skills, but also able to explore strategies to enable a future of shared prosperity. In this context, what does the work of the future look like? And how can we modernize apprenticeships to be nimble to the changing nature of work? On that note, a quick introduction to the panelists. On my left here is Shannon McCann. She's an educator for a long time and an executive committee member of the National Education Association. Josh Laney, who we just saw in the video, is the founding director of the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship, and Nina leads apprenticeships at Google. My first question is to you, Shannon. What does the work of the future look like for your field? And how are skills changing in your industry? And of course, what challenges do you face in attracting the right kind of talent?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and especially good morning to folks from the West Coast, where it's very early. So I just want to start with gratitude, just immense gratitude, obviously, to the Urban Institute and all of our partners, the DOL, and all of you in the room who are working to have high-quality family wage jobs, because that means that's the bright future that our students are looking for, and you're creating that. So I wanted to start with gratitude. I'm a middle school special education teacher just south of Seattle in Federal Way. So we're one of the most diverse school districts in the nation, most diverse. And it's been an honor and so exciting that there's this coalescence of apprenticeship for our students to look forward to, but also as a teacher, having apprenticeship be one of the most exciting changes in our field and getting to be part of that. As a middle school special education teacher, looking around, especially after the pandemic when so many educators honestly had to tap out, just being so burnt out, it's a challenge to even find a special ed teacher that has even 5 years of seniority. So when we thought about apprenticeship, first of all, the question is, hey, what's apprenticeship? Because for so many of us, it's been called student teaching. And to turn to the group, is there anyone in this room that knows someone who can take a year unpaid with no health insurance and no salary and still pay the bills? Okay, no hands up. I'm like, well, waiting one day, maybe there will be a hand. But that's currently, the expectation. And I was thinking to myself today, I'm like, is that really the expectation? Is that really what we're doing? And apprenticeship means that folks who have always wanted to be educators, who are often already in our schools serving as paraeducators, are able to fulfill their dream of being a teacher. And in Washington State, we are so fortunate to have incredible partnerships with our Department of Labor, with our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and the Washington Education Association. Our teachers union is now certified to actually grant special education teaching certificates. And we have connected with our global partners and asked, hey, is anyone else doing this? And the answer that we've heard is no. For this space, there's a global educator shortage of about 44 million educators. That is staggering. So for us to put forward in coalition with all of you, apprenticeship, it is a game changer. And the good news is we now have data that it works. Folks who have always wanted to become teachers are, they're succeeding. And the diversity that's so important, it hasn't been an afterthought. It's been actually where we start. Our design team has parents, has folks with disabilities. We're really intentional, including communities of color, not in the design in the program, but also, of course, who we're inviting and succeeding through the apprenticeship program. And I think the last note before I'll hand it back is my entire family, they're all part of the business side, and I'm the one special education teacher. And so our conversations at the dinner table are fascinating, as you can imagine. But the thing is, we all know that the American economy runs through our public schools. 90% of our students are in public schools. 95% of our students with disabilities are in our public schools. And in many regions in this nation, our public schools are the largest employer, and they are the thriving hub for communities. And so in coalition with all of you, the investment in making sure that every single student has a highly trained educator who can afford to stay in the profession and is well trained to navigate these changes that we've seen, from AI to multiple impacts like mental health supports. We get to do that through apprenticeship, and we get to do that together so that every student can thrive and every community can thrive.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon. I mean, you really touched on a lot of great things. I was a former educator myself, and I know the burnout, it is real. And the global shortage of teachers and educators is mind-boggling, right, to all of us. So this is incredible that apprenticeship is doing what you need for the field, right? Josh, I know you had a couple of minutes of fame already on the video, so I'm going to skip you for a minute and go to Nina. And Nina, this is a question for both you and Shannon, actually. We have worked with you to develop national occupational frameworks for your program, for your apprenticeship programs. Can you tell us how your organization is using these and why you find them valuable?
Absolutely. I was going to say, would you like to go first? Or?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so couple perspectives. Let me start by saying we know that frameworks can be mutually beneficial for both the employer and the worker. We've seen this work in multiple countries, UK, Switzerland. And why does that work? It's because it aligns expectations for both parties. And that's really important. So if you're an employer, you get to articulate and specify the skill sets that you are investing in and know that with crystallization. If you are an apprentice, you are making an informed decision about the commitment that you're about to make And why is that important? Well, we all know in this room, it's very obvious, right? Apprenticeships are going to be an incredible opportunity for many people. For the folks where it can be the most transformative, they may be facing additional barriers, additional obstacles. And so they might be thinking about trade-offs before taking on an opportunity like that. Shannon just spoke about that evolution in her industry and how critical that is for folks to make that decision. Now, if you are able to do that, know exactly what you're going to get, have an understanding of the program and that pathway, and you are successful in completing it, the whole system wins, right? If the apprentice is successful, they can make informed decisions, the employer wins. And we all know that if the apprentice and the employer win, then the model wins. So that's one perspective. The second is, as part of Google.org and our apprenticeship program, our mission is broadly to build advanced, diversified talent for the industry. And so it's really important that the skills we commit to, that the apprentices and the standards that we're focusing on start from a place of industry, because our skills that we're building can't just be valuable to their time at Google, but actually broadly to the industry. And that's really what makes that durable. And not only for just the apprentices, right? They're gonna have a long-term career in this chosen profession. And so starting from a place of industry, from community, from consensus, as Urban mentioned, is really something that we feel confident about. And then lastly, let me just point out, we've been working with you all to some capacity for 4 years. In this moment in time, we've been running this program in the US for 4 years. We started in 2020, expanded in 2021 in the US, and we've had 4 years of learnings now, and it's been a time where many of these industries are evolving. So we thought it was going to be a perfect time to update our standards. We've invested in uplifting durable and professional skills. We know that's all incredibly important. And we've identified areas where in some industries there's movement from a technology and digital perspective, and making sure that we name those so that our apprentices can understand exactly what they're learning. But I just gotta say, it's been such a collaborative effort. We've had that flexibility to kind of lean into it, but again, to know that we're part of a larger conversation, and that, for employers, the more that really folks lean into it, give insight, partner, utilize the standards, it's not just the apprentice that wins, actually, right? It's the whole community and the ecosystem. But it is a community effort, for sure.
Thank you, Nina. I love the picture you paint about, this is a win for the apprentice, the employer, and the community as a whole. I mean, that is where the vision of shared prosperity actually comes to reality, right? Shannon.
Yeah, well, it's so exciting too to think about Google, because those are some of the jobs that we want our students, our high school students, to explore. And I'm just getting so excited because if you have the chance, go visit a high school, go visit a middle school, specifically go check out the CTE programs, because our students are doing like cybersecurity, doing all these incredible things. And thinking of the three of us on the panel, that connection that is there. And I'm just sitting here because one of the comments that absolutely blew my mind, and this comes to the point of, when we create these standards and frameworks, we're creating a future that exists. And our connection is, how do we get our students there? How do we get folks that want to be there and understand, the components of it? And so in a CTE school, we have a teacher academy, which is under the CTE umbrella. And I went, I get to visit, and our students are just so brilliant, and they're often doing things that they never write on the resume. And so I get to be that person that says, hey, you're bilingual? Oh my God, hey, wait, you designed all of this in Google Classroom? You did all that? Write that on your resume. And they're like, really? Because they just, that's just the air they breathe. And so we did this amazing, presentation, and they get to talk about, what they did that year. And I'm listening to one of these students, and they're like, look, I don't know if I'm going to go into teaching. This is a teacher academy program. And the teacher, and we talked about it, and they're like, I think I want to go try out the trades. And we were kind of debriefing, and this other teacher said, that is the biggest win of all. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, they don't want to be a teacher? And they're like, no, they got to explore teaching. They got to learn communication skills. They got to learn collaboration. They are leading projects. They are public speaking. They are doing all of these things, and they've decided now, before they take on student loans, that they probably don't want to be a teacher, but they do want to go pursue apprenticeships. And so the next day, I came back and we were finishing up the presentations, and this teacher ran out to me in the parking lot and was like, oh my gosh, guess what? I connected them up with the pre-apprenticeship program with the Carpenters Union, and guess what? They're going to be doing that this summer. So I mean, it's when you talk about the possibilities that we've all created through these frameworks. The ripple effects are much broader than I think I personally ever imagined.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. There's a lot of work going on in schools, and I wish more of us would take time to go visit and learn the things that are going on. And you're right, it is a ripple effect, I think. And I hope this continues for a very, very long time. Yeah. Well, Josh, your question. Despite the recent uptick in registered apprenticeship, it is still not widely used as a solution by employers to close the skills gap. A lot of folks still ask us, what is apprenticeship, right? So how can you position apprenticeship as a solution for them to train their future workforce?
Thank you. I think it didn't occur to me until I was sitting here that my physical position here is sort of symbolic between the world of education and the world of work. That's kind of that's a big part of our role. You probably did that on purpose.
Last job.
And also, just from the depths of my soul, bless your heart, with a special education middle school teacher and retaining most of your sanity. I was a junior high assistant principal for several years and didn't get out with most of my sanity. So, but to your question, I think the biggest thing we have to do as those charged with expanding apprenticeship is recognize that we serve dual customers. And we don't traditionally think of it in that way in most of our education system. If you get a room full of teachers together and you ask them, who is your customer, they will generally say, well, our students are our customers. But the customer is the person who consumes your product, right? So you've got to also consider that the employer is the consumer of the product. And I want to give you just a somewhat ridiculous example, but you probably expected that from me. As I came in here last night, I generally pick hotels based on the proximity to the place that I'm going to stay and just a general brand thing because I need to build up enough points that my wife can use them up on vacations, right? So I go into this hotel last night, and I won't name the brand, but it was the first time I'd stayed in one of these, and they had club music playing in the lobby when I would go, okay, this is different, and bright pink and purple lights and so forth. And then the person at the check-in desk, when they checked me in, I'm pretty sure he called me bro. I think. I could barely hear him over the club music. And then I get to my room, and it's the size of a matchbox, and that's okay. I don't really care. It's got a shower. It's got a bed. I'm good. But it doesn't have an iron. It has a steamer. And I learned last night that apparently young people don't use irons. They use steamers. And it just occurred to me that, yes, this is a hotel, but it wasn't built for me. It wasn't, I have a different set of needs in where I'm going to stay than a younger person who's here for a completely different reason. And we have to think of our apprenticeship and our training models in general in the same way. We've got to build the model for the specific set of customers that we're trying to serve. And doing that requires a shift in our mindset. Employers have to come to think of themselves as not just consumers of talent, but co-producers of talent. Because as I work with employers, my staff, they are subject matter experts in building high-quality training programs. But I couldn't begin to tell you what they need to know to do at Google, or on the linemen that were out front today with their setup. We're not subject matter experts in those things. So I've got to depend on the expertise of the employer to help me produce that training outline. We have a tendency in education, we'll say, okay, well, what do students need to know in math? We'll bring together the best math teachers in the state, we'll put them all in a room together, and they'll tell each other what kids need to know about math, and then we'll go out and apply that treatment to students, and then we send those students out into the world, and we hope that we trained them in the thing that was applicable, and we call that the train and pray model. And we're still going to be praying, but we got to get away from the train and pray model. We've got to actually build our training to meet the needs of the employers. And then the flip side of that for apprenticeship, our educators also have to come to think of themselves not only as the producers of talent, but they've got to recognize that apprentices are employees first. This is very difficult. We think of students, and I see this a lot in our higher ed. We work with a lot of nursing apprenticeship programs in the state. and getting the employers to the educators to understand, my first consideration for scheduling, simply that kind of thing, has to be the employer's needs. These are employees who are being sent to me for professional development, not students that I'm sending out to get a little work experience for. And when you get that mental shift to occur, then we're building programs that meet the needs of both sides of this equation. And the final step in that is we call it talent pipeline management. We stole that from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Talent pipeline management. You got to also recognize that you're bringing in different groups of people, bringing different raw materials in the door as you're trying to produce this skilled worker. And those individuals also have different needs. So to your point about the traditional education model, I mean, I was a teacher, I went through that, and I just starved and ate ramen for a period of time, and I could do that because I was still on mama's insurance and they were paying the bills, and it was okay. But in Alabama particularly, we're looking at extremely low unemployment rates. Everybody who wants to work, that's not true. Everybody who is seeking employment is finding employment, but there are people who want to work who aren't able to enter the job market. And as we survey, the governor's office repeatedly surveys and tries to find out, well, why are you not taking the jobs? One of the top three among childcare and transportation, one of those top three every time is I don't have the skills to do the jobs that are available. That person may be running the cash register at a Dollar General. They've got work ethic. They'll go do it. And if you offer them a job that's got a forward career path and high wages, of course they would love to do that. But they also have a life and they have bills and they maybe have kids already or whatever. They can't quit what they're doing and go back to a residential university model. So we've got to meet the needs directly of each of the participating partners in this education system that we're calling apprenticeship. If we do that, then we will continue to grow and expand the model.
Thank you, Josh. I think what you said about employers being the co-producers of talent and not just consumers is really, really, really key. And for the national occupational frameworks, I mean, you saw what Zach just said, we did work with a lot of employers, industry associations, journey workers, like professionals in the field to actually, review these and make sure that it's very, very relevant to the field, right? But that's only half the job, right? So this question is for both Shannon and Nina. How can employers better support their employees in keeping their skills relevant in the field?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying too, I mean, thanks to the leadership of Manny Lamar and so many others at the OA, that we've gone from this. Our teacher apprenticeship is only 2 years old, so there's 2 states that had teacher apprenticeship. Now we're up to 37, and so I say that to start the question with, hey, we need to have states and districts invest in apprenticeship programs. They work, and one of the biggest challenges that we face is some kind of knee-jerk reaction of lowering the standards, and that's not acceptable to us. As the National Education Association, we start with excellence, we start with diversity, we start with knowing the bright future for every educator, and that also means reducing or eliminating barriers. One of the interesting things that we thought about when we planned the Washington Education Association's apprenticeship model, we anticipated kind of $1,000 problems. We didn't anticipate the number of $10 and $20 problems. And that means, talking to one of our apprentices, hey, we got to get those fingerprints in, got to get those, get this done. He's like, I don't have the $20 to do it. Yeah. Right? So we had planned for transportation stipend, meal stipend, childcare. We planned for $35,000, which is not enough money, but it is more, and that is revolutionary for many. Started at $35,000 plus medical and retirement, and it really was interesting listening and being really intentional and genuine to what our folks were going through. Childcare, right? Like these are big societal issues, and that investment in apprenticeship really is a game changer for not only their families. I happened to see one of our apprentices having lunch with her 2 kids and her mom, and she's a single mom with 2 kids. She always wanted to be a teacher. She never could be a teacher, and she got to be a teacher because of the apprenticeship program. And that changes a school, right? It also changes the civil rights outcomes for our students, right? Like they have a civil right to receive public education, and for special education, that's where we started. We started with a special education certificate. And, you know, of course, talking about salary and benefits, like this has come up in other places where if we're going to have this as an apprenticeable occupation, we have to make sure that there's a thriving wage when our apprentices actually, you know, enter full-time employment. And so that's for all of us, right? It's a very popular view to increase teacher salary, and so I'll just flag that whenever you have a chance. You know, make sure to advocate, because it really is, you know, about our thriving communities. And I think, you know, to your point too, the time to learn about the professions that exist, right? Like we have to be thoughtful. Where does that time come from for teachers to learn about that? And the community school model is another big answer, right? The community school model that NEA is helping lead means bringing the community around the table, employers, you know, regional occupations, parents, kids, to say what do we need from our public school, and let's go get that together. And that's, you know, a really interesting component, especially when we think about AI coming into the field, right? Starting with the regional needs of that building, and that takes time. But I'll hand it to you.
You know what? AI can do a lot of things, but cannot provide supportive services.
Exactly.
So, you know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll start off with something that you brought up, which is kind of like meeting the needs of folks and where they're at. And I think when we're talking about skill building and skill evolution, the first is naming the skill, going back to frameworks, right? Like, is everybody aligned, employer, worker, apprentice, whoever it may be, on where the skills are at and where they need to go? And sometimes the answer is hazy, right? It's changing so fast. So I think for employers, being able to name what that expectation is, going back to shared understanding. And the second is, it can be really challenging. You know, and I can only speak from an apprenticeship standpoint, but I'll also say that every business and every company is different. So my answer is probably not going to be a one-size-fits-all. But, you know, it can be intimidating and overwhelming no matter what, to feel like you need to keep up with skills, again, at a pace that is unpredictable and for everybody. And so I think it's really important, and what we've learned from Insights is really to build that culture of positivity and curiosity. So again, that's going to look different for every company, but for our apprentices, we're in 8 countries across the world, 8 different professions, and each of them come in a cohort model. And so those are folks they're going to remember for the rest of their life. They're learning together, they're growing together, they're supporting each other. And in times where skill building is important, folks may be struggling with something, learning a new concept, that cohort is invaluable. And that may translate into, you know, a lot of initiatives. So I'll give you all an example. We found out recently that a couple of apprentices in our digital marketing track took it upon themselves to start a newsletter. Unprompted, just took the initiative by themselves. And this newsletter was about all these tips around AI tooling that they were learning. And then before you know it, other apprentices started subscribing to this newsletter. And then before you know it, Google employees started subscribing to this newsletter. But it was just this, you know, approachable, open, collaborative way of learning for something that is going to be beneficial to everybody. So I think the foundation and the consistency that, you know, is probably across all of our different fields is that psychological safety and positive and curious mindset to continue learning.
I love that. I love the space that they had to you know, create a newsletter, and that's been so popular. That is amazing. Yeah. I think that's exactly what employers need to do to provide that initiative and space. Yeah, thank you. Josh, my question is for you, and I also have to say this is a big question, but at the same time, if you can be succinct, because we got the time signal. How can we modernize apprenticeships to be nimble to the changing nature of work? And what can USDOL, the Department of Labor, or state apprenticeship agencies do to make them easier to adopt and scale up?
Okay. So the changing nature of work thing, I think the first thing we got to do is get over ourselves. It has always been changing. Manny was talking about the Renaissance. I mean, this is not the first time that the entire way we do work has changed. So how did we adapt to that in the past? Well, we adapted as we had to by developing new models for training. And now we're right back to that same question again. And whether it's moving from buggy whips to Model Ts to Teslas, or moving from, you know, DOS to AI, it's the same concept. And so we've got to be willing to update our models of training first. And then as far as what can the states and the USDOL do, use the authority that we have to create policies that facilitate this engagement and get out of the way. You would probably not be surprised that I tend to think that less regulation is better regulation, but there are also places where it is our responsibility to put guardrails on programs to ensure quality, to make sure that I don't like for people to say, oh, an apprenticeship is a great alternative pathway. It's not an alternative pathway. We will know that we have succeeded when apprenticeships are viewed as post-secondary education. And I think we're moving quickly in that direction. The idea that apprenticeships are for the other group, and well, my kids are all going to college, that still exists, but it's not exclusive anymore. And the more we move into apprenticeships in high-tech, high-wage, high-demand fields, things that do require degrees, nobody is knocking our carpenters, plumbers, welders. That absolutely is also becoming more high-tech and advanced. But the faster we move into these other areas, the quicker we break down that mental association that people have that, oh, well, the apprenticeship's for the people that couldn't go to college. It's just not true, and so we need to expand that. Some policies that we've put into place in Alabama that I think help. We have a last dollar scholarship policy, so we make it clear to employers right up front. The apprentice doesn't pay for the bill for this. This is an employer's investment in their people. But we also have a living wage policy, so that you're going to make sure that by the end of the first year of training, you're at least making the average living wage for an adult in Alabama. We have all of those authorities already. We sometimes don't act on them because we are timid or we don't want to ruffle very many feathers. And so we just need to use the authorities that we have, I think. We also, last thing I promise, I know we're running out of time, we also can't create tools that force apprenticeship into situations where it's not necessarily the right thing, or where we attract people to apprenticeship for the wrong reasons. So we won't register a program where the company is clearly seeking a tax credit or an incentive and doesn't have interest in developing a training program. We just won't do it. But we sometimes building these incentives, like Manny mentioned the IRA, or somebody mentioned the IRA, we build those things in there and we almost force companies into it when they didn't buy in the first place. And either being forced into it or going into it from this idea of corporate altruism, I'm just going to do it because it's good for the community, neither of those lasts. So we got to be on the lookout for both of those as motivations that are pushing people into the programs.
I like the role of the state or the U.S. Department of Labor in bringing people together, and I like that. Get out of the way and then let them, set that stage. Let them set the policies that we need to do. I mean, I think you still need to be at the table, but really do that work, right? I mean, you do need to bring people together to do that. So I know we are at time, but if I can ask you very, very quickly in like one sentence, if you can say, what gives you hope in this?
There's the saying, a society grows when we plant trees under which the shade we may not sit. And I think about that a lot. The thing that is really surprising with apprenticeship and teachers, the mentor teachers who are looking at us and saying, I get to stay in this profession now because of this amazing opportunity of being a mentor in the apprenticeship field.
Thank you. That was amazing. Josh?
A lot of things, but I guess if I'm picking one, it is the variety of partners that are bringing their own subject matter expertise to the table now. We've got organizations that are specifically focusing on including higher ed in apprenticeship programs, and then we've got people that are bringing a tight focus on the durable skills that people learn in the apprenticeship programs. You've got so many partners, and in a time when we can't really agree on the color of grass, we can agree as a nation that apprenticeships are a solution, and I'm hopeful because we got so many interested parties bringing their piece that we can flesh out this whole puzzle.
Nina?
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty simple. I think, economic opportunity, resilience, mobility, it's going to continue to be a priority for so many folks. And we all know it takes a village. We've been in these forums before, and one of the outcomes is usually partnership is what's going to drive apprenticeships. So I think even just knowing, who's on stage altogether, the faces in the room coming from different functions, occupations, perspectives, and that we all care so deeply about apprenticeships as a solution, I think is what gives me hope.
Great. On that note, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Welcome to the Registered Apprenticeship Standards Library, a new resource to help you jumpstart the development of an apprenticeship program. Registered Apprenticeship combines learning on the job and in the classroom. Whether you are just beginning to explore apprenticeships or are ready to develop your own apprenticeship program, a great place to start is by finding existing examples of approved programs. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Labor, in partnership with the Urban Institute, launched the Registered Apprenticeship Standards Library to be a comprehensive collection of the nation's apprenticeship standards. The library is a free online resource of thousands of existing apprenticeship training standards that can be easily searched. The library includes federal and state programs, along with a cross-section of occupations in all industries. The library is growing, with more programs added every week. How can the library help your apprenticeship efforts? You can easily search by industry, occupation, state, and more to find multiple examples of approved apprenticeship training standards, including on-the-job training and classroom instruction outlines. By using the library, you will have access to the information that you need as a starting point to develop your registered apprenticeship program. Visit apprenticeshipstandards.org today to jumpstart your apprenticeship.
All right, well, thank you to all of our speakers. Because of your partnership, our future is brighter. And thank you to everyone who joined us online. If you put a question in online, we are trying to answer those on the fly. But if you have a larger question or a larger discussion you want to have, you can reach us at apprenticeship@urban.org. That's our email address. Thank you all for joining us online.